You've probably already read the title, which means that this recipe needs little to no introduction. We're making chocolate macarons, the famous French cookie, which is surprisingly easy to make. Ignore the stereotype of the hard baking process, since this recipe is basically foolproof, and you will be sure to surprise everybody, including yourself. We will start by mixing up the dry ingredients, which include the almond flour, cocoa powder, and powdered sugar. All the recipe quantities are linked in the description down below. Mix this well, but don't worry about any lumps since we will be putting this in the food processor. If you don't own one, which is completely fine, just sift the dry ingredients as best you can. You will still get delicious macaroons, except you run the risk of having a bumpy shell. After running the dry ingredients through the food processor, you will need to sift them twice. In a separate bowl, we will start whipping up the egg whites. Whip them until you reach soft peaks. From here on, incorporate your granulated sugar in thirds and continue whipping the egg whites until you reach stiff peaks. If you have done this properly, you'll be able to turn your bowl upside down on your head without the risk of the contents falling out. Now we will start with the macaronage. This is the most crucial step of the recipe since this will determine the growth of your macarons feet. Pour the dry ingredients onto the egg whites and start folding. Fold, don't mix! Some people have a specific amount of folds, but I believe in the 8 method. This method is basically confirming that the macaron batter is ready by creating an 8. Grab some batter on the spatula and make an 8 in the air, like so. If a perfect 8 is formed, stop folding, this is what you want. Next step is making the macaron shells. Place your baking paper on the oven tray and glue each side with a bit of batter. My top tip to making equal sized shells is to get a bottle cap, dip it in batter, and place the outline on the paper. Fill the shells, and then to pop the bubbles that may have formed, tap the tray on the counter. Then we will allow them to create a firm top by letting them rest at room temperature for 1 hour. While we wait, I'm going to be making the filling, which is actually a very simple chocolate ganache recipe. Heat up the heavy cream and pour it over the shredded chocolate. Let that sit for around 5 minutes and then stir it until the chocolate is completely melted. Now, here you can have the option to add toppings to the ganache. You can use cut up Kinder Bueno, chopped Reese's, etc. I'm going to be adding ferrero rocher to half of the ganache and keep the other half plain. When it's all mixed in, you can go ahead and cover it up and let it chill for 1 to 2 hours. Now it's time to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 Celsius. Check that the top of the shell has hardened and pop your macaroons into the oven for 10 to 15 minutes. Then take them out and let them cool completely. Let's get to assembling, shall we? Get your piping bag and fill it up with your ganache. Pipe it neatly onto your shell and finish up by sandwiching it between another one. Now, the next step is completely optional, but it definitely helps with the presentation. Melt some white chocolate and pour it over your shells to create the design of your choice. Then sprinkle on top some roasted chopped hazelnuts. All you have to do now is let them sit in the fridge for around 3 days so that they can develop flavor and so that the shell can soften. These might take some time to make, but they're absolutely delicious, so if you got the time, try them out. Thank you for watching and good luck!